So, we are in the month of May, and if you're an IndyCar fan, that can only mean one thing. The biggest race on your calendar, and arguably in the entire world, is not too far away. All of the pre-race festivities, all the pomp and ceremony, all of the build-up and the on-track action that comes before it is about to commence. Usually, the curtain raiser to the month of May is the now new tradition, if you call it, the Indianapolis Grand Prix, which utilises the road course. However, whilst the Indianapolis Road Course and Indy GP is now considered a new part of the tradition of the month of May, let's not try and distract ourselves from what, in reality, is just a way of trying to boost the popularity and gain more of an audience for the Indianapolis 500, the main event. Let me put it this way, the Indianapolis 500 is your starter, main course and dessert all rolled into one, whereas the Indianapolis Grand Prix is a bit like an hors d'oeuvre that you get served prior to the meal starting. It's not really something that sparks much of an interest in the main meal, but it's enough to get you started, I guess. The month of May is often a period where the word history gets uttered quite a lot. And obviously it's for very good reason. The Indianapolis 500 has been going quite a long time. However, we need to put the word history into perspective. Let's have a look at what the word history means if you looked at it in the Cambridge Dictionary and its specific definition defined by them. The definition is considered as the study of, or a record of, past events considered together, especially events of a particular period, country, or subject. Obviously, in terms of a history in the world of not just IndyCar but motor racing in general, Indianapolis is entrenched knee-deep in the stuff. Since it was opened in 1909 at a cost of $3 million, which is $86 million in today's money, those bricks that lay the groundwork for this place still lay bare with one stretch across the magical finish line, even going into the paddock for fans to kiss if they so wish. The Indianapolis 500 this year is going into its 111th anniversary and has a winner which drinks milk at the end of a race. In terms of history, you would be hard pressed to find any place in racing with a greater history than the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The oval is fabled ground in the racing world. The road course, however, is not. It is a fairly normal racetrack in the middle of one of motorsport's iconic venues. The road course doesn't have anything wrong with it per se. It has good overtaking opportunities, it looks quite fun to drive around, and it is not particularly long. Plus, from a fan's perspective, you can probably see most of the track depending on your vantage point. However, that is all the Indianapolis Road Course is. It's clean, crisp, modern, and inoffensive. You don't look at the road course and go, "Oh dear, what an awful pile of garbage this is." It's just there. In fact, having races at the road course is a good thing for some series, like the 8-hour GT race or a potential F1 race returning, and having an IndyCar race on that track is okay if it's just one of them. All that being said though, we are using this track far too much. Whilst I have said that the track does not have anything wrong with it, by a similar token it doesn't have anything to shout home about either. It looks featureless in the sense it has little to no elevation changes. It has an unmistakably butter-like smoothness, and if a driver does make a mistake, if you ignore the last corner, you would do pretty well to find a wall or barrier to hit because it has plenty of leeway if mistakes are made. The thing is though, in terms of IndyCar racing, mistakes at this track are incredibly hard to come by. Probably because the drivers have raced on this track 5 times in 2 years. Now, I understand why 2020 had 3 races, including a doubleheader at the track because of the pandemic, with the doubleheader acting as a replacement ground for cancelled events. However, I would argue if we had any need to do this track twice a year, with one as a lead up to the Indy 500 as one as part of the NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader, if the race is run once every year with NASCAR, then that is fine. However, do we really need this race to build up the Indy 500? Why can't we use another place to build up the excitement for the greatest spectacle in racing? Just because the race prior is at Indianapolis does not mean it is either going to be a good or memorable one. And with the races at the road course seeming to be no more than average most of the time, that is not going to help entice people to watch the 500. NASCAR have tried the road course at Indianapolis over the oval for last year and this year, and though the race was marred by the curb at the chicane breaking up and causing carnage, the race prior to that moment was not too bad. Nothing dramatic, but certainly was one in which you could sit back and relax to. The thing is though, from a TV perspective, it didn't get as many viewers as the oval race did in 2020, although the oval race in terms of popularity has decreased noticeably over the years. I think one of the reasons why is from a historical perspective. Where is all the prestige and the heritage that draws people in to watch races at Indianapolis? The oval. The road course does not. Plus, after a while, people are likely going to get bored of watching races at the same track, especially if races at that track are not that memorable. Particularly on the IndyCar side of things, where the series prides itself, and indeed does, provide a very wide range of tracks and track types. When you have two races in the same season, at the same track, and indeed at a track that the series owns and is named after, people are going to question the track diversity. I'm sure Roger Penske is aware of this and will more than likely want one of the races gone from the schedule. I also don't agree with how, despite the road course is 21 years old compared to the oval track's 112 years, we keep getting told of how these road course races are traditions or part of the tradition that makes this speedway special. Let me put it this way. How many people remember who won an Indy road course race? It is probably going to be less than people who remember who won an Indy 500 or a Brickyard 400. Just because it's at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway does not mean it can be part of tradition or share a similar history as the oval. Let me put it to you in a different way. If you went to Augusta, and then in a couple of years' time they had a brand new putting-only competition on half the holes, in which golf's biggest names turned up to play, and then it happened to keep going for another 10 or so years. It may be part of Augusta, but it certainly is not like playing on the whole course for the Augusta Nationals. The putting competition is not going to be entrenched in the same history as the Augusta Nationals are. I don't want to sound like I'm having a go at the Indianapolis Road Course, because to be honest, nothing is wrong with it. If this track was completely separate from the Speedway and it was its own permanent track somewhere else on the planet, then it would be a pleasant and normal racetrack. However, we can't get lost in the fact that because it is at Indianapolis, it shares any part of the oval's history, or indeed any of Indianapolis Motor Speedway's history, because it doesn't. Well, despite me being on a slight downer for the build up to the month of May, I still, one, hope you enjoyed this video, and two, very much hope you enjoy the month of May, because goodness me, there is nothing else, in my opinion, in the racing world like this particular month, and especially the build up to the Indianapolis 500. Practice, qualifying, you name it, every single element of that event is just, dialed up to 11 times 11 times 11 times 11, etc, etc. But still, I hope you enjoyed this video, but in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and until the next one, enjoy the rest of your day.